there. I'd like to welcome everybody for our Zoom session today with Fatima, our registered holistic nutritionist. She has a wealth of knowledge in nutritional sciences, and I welcome you to listen in and enjoy the session. Take it away, Fatima. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in. As Raheem mentioned, I am a registered holistic nutritionist, and I'm very excited to be here with all of you. Thank you for those that have come in person and that are also joining us online. So, as you know, we are going to be talking about how we unravel the intricate dance between cortisol stress, chronic stress, I should say, and your body's hormonal symphony. Raheem, if you could please change the slides. So, for those of you who don't know, I am a registered holistic nutritionist. I've actually gone through, we've all got a lot of stress in our life. We've got stress from daily living, we've got stress from our environment, we have stress all around us. I'm someone who has had a lot of stress. I've had a lot of triggers. I've gone through depression. I'm actually a survivor of depression. And knowing what I know now, food, nutrition, as well as how my hormones interact, make a huge difference in our lives. Again, if you can go to the next slide. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of a journey as to what hormones and cortisols look like. So if within the last 6 months you've had any of these symptoms for high cortisol, where you're constantly racing from one task to another and you're just on autopilot, or you're feeling wired and tired, you're struggling to calm down before bed, or you have like the second wind. If you've scored more than 3 of this, then that definitely means you've got high cortisol. For me, I know when things go crazy for me, I definitely have a hard time sleeping. I'm usually wired and tired. I will get a second wind. I often feel worried, can't stop, and I'm anxious about things that I can't control. And that is also connected to depression. There's other things like sugar cravings. I do get those a lot. And especially women, sometimes you wonder, just before that, your wonderful friendly visit, you're always wanting the sugar, or you're craving the salts. Well, there's a reason for it. You're not going crazy. It's because our cortisol levels are off balance, which then are actually spiraling, and our other hormones are off balance. So what else does high cortisol do? Indigestion, high blood sugar levels, high blood pressure, or rapid heartbeat, bone loss. So it's very common for us women, as we hit the age of like 35 and older, to start seeing our bones deteriorate. Our bones are weaker. We don't get as much calcium into our bones, because what happens is from the age of 0 to about 30, we are putting in calcium into our body. And so our bones are absorbing it. Then after about 30, 35, between that age range, our bones are actually leaching the calcium. So we're losing a lot of the bone density. Or you have that unexplained weight gain because of cortisol. These are just some of the symptoms of high cortisol. Now I'm going to show you on the next slide the difference between low cortisol. And you can have both high cortisol and low cortisol at the same time. Raheem? Low cortisol. So you can have both high cortisol and low cortisol. It depends on the time of the day. So when you're looking at these symptoms, you want to actually look at the last 6 months to track to see what's happening with yourself. Because often as women, we do have our different cycles. We have our menses. So we are going through different cycles. But outside of what's happening within our cycle, these are great indicators as to what is happening overall. So for low cortisol, you're very fatigued, you're burnt out, or you fall asleep while watching TV or even reading. I'm prone to do that. So I've got both high and low, but I tend to be more on the high cortisol side when things go crazy for me. You lose stamina, especially between 2 and 5, and you need to go get that coffee or that caffeine, or sometimes the energy drinks, which I would actually stay away from because those definitely increase your cortisol levels, your adrenaline level. You start crying for no reason, absolutely no reason. No, it's not because of your hormonal switch. It's actually, you just start crying and you can't figure out why. You have a decreased sense of ability to problem solve, which is very common. Your blood pressure actually goes low. Now, if you're someone who has low blood pressure all the time, this is something that you want to make sure you're always checking. Have have the salt water if you need to, with the Himalayan salt water in the morning to increase um, your cortisol levels. And you'll notice that salt cravings is one of them. So that's when you know that you need that bag of chips. It's because your cortisol levels are low, or you've got excess sweating. And so now when you're sweating, you're actually you're losing all of your electrolytes. And so then you need to replenish with electrolytes. And how do you do that? You can easily take salt water, or you can have an electrolyte drink. I know there's this really great one, a watermelon electrolyte drink. Other major problems that you'll see with low cortisol is thyroid issues. And then that actually then snowballs into our gut and other sexual hormones. These are just some of them. You can go through all of them, whichever ones apply to you. And then maybe you need to book a call with me so that we can actually have a good session. We can work out what's happening for you. Next slide. So this is just more of a visual as to what is happening when you've got high cortisol. You're in fight or flight mode. So you've got mood disorders. You've got weakness. You've got like hair growth in unwanted areas, like say, for example, on your face, on your chin. And as women, that definitely is not something that we want. We have like specific areas. Now you notice that you've got hair growth in other areas that you normally wouldn't. You've got like excess weight around your abdominal, and that is like, it's like that fat tissue, which is visceral. So what happens is when your cortisol levels are high, we're generally in fight or flight mode. And so when your adrenaline, another word for cortisol, is high, is that your digestive system is not working properly. It then needs to go wherever it's needed. So your hormones, your energy goes towards your hormones as opposed to proper digestion. Then you also will notice that you've got muscle loss, you've got skin ulcers, you bruise easily. And then there's a lot of fat buildup just at the back of your neck. Like that's usually when you see a hump. That's when you'll see that hump, is when they've got high cortisol. Next. So here we have the trifecta. So we've got cortisol, which is the main stress hormone, which governs our blood sugar levels, our blood pressure, and immune function. But then it also then affects our thyroid, which affects our metabolism and our energy. And then it actually then affects our estrogen level, and also progesterone and testosterone levels for men. So this regulates our menstruation, builds the uterine lining to prepare for pregnancy, and keeps women juicy from joints to the vagina as well. It keeps us lubricated. When you notice that you've lost your libido, you've lost that energy, look at your cortisol levels and look at this trifecta then. Next. So here is a quick overview of how our hormones are produced. Cholesterol is actually a very important thing that we need in order for our hormones to be to be made, as well as vitamin D. So vitamin D and cholesterol are precursors to our hormones. And so the pregnenolone is actually the mother of all hormones. And from there, if you're out of balance and your cortisol is high, your cortisol is going to steal the pregnenolone. Sorry, that's a tongue twister for me. And your other hormones then will not be properly created. Okay. So here, if you look at this slide basically will tell you what is happening. So our brain will create the hormones in the pituitary. It'll go down into our bloodstream. It'll go into our liver where it's converted into glycogen or glucose. That's another form of hormone. It'll increase our blood pressure. It'll increase our sweating. So even as women, we're going through perimenopause, menopause, we have levels of increased sweat, whether it be during the evening, whether it be during the morning, all the time. We're just sweating out of nowhere. That's because our cortisol levels are much higher. Our breathing becomes a lot heavier because we've restricted airway passage. We have accelerated heart rate because now our heart is actually having to pump a lot more because our blood pressure is lower. Our vision actually becomes very narrowed and our digestion slows down. Next slide. So here we have the connection, a deeper connection as to what is happening into our body. So with the digestive system, when our cortisol levels are high or low, we have decreased hydrochloric acid production, which means we're not able to actually break down our food. The amount of chewing that we do is actually decreased. So when you're chewing, when you're healthy, when everything is balanced, you're supposed to be chewing 33 times so that it makes it easier for your digestion. The digestion actually begins before you even put anything in your mouth. It actually starts at the phallic stage, which is the moment you start cooking and you're smelling the aromas. That's when your digestion actually starts. So when you're in fight or flight mode, when your cortisol levels are up, when you're stressed, you're not actually taking the time to enjoy that stage. You're not taking the time to really smell it. You're just chewing everything. You're just, gulping everything down and not actually processing the foods. So now also your enzymes are lowered, which means you're not getting the proteins that you need. Your food is not also being broken down. Now, here's another thing that you don't most times think of is food combining. When we're in a rush, we just grab and not think as to, okay, we need to separate our plates and have different foods. Whereas, we want to have half of our plate as greens and vegetables so we can get our fiber. So that also supports and lowers our cortisol levels. We then need to have a certain amount of protein. So from half the plate, we need like a quarter of the plate, which is a protein, then a quarter of that, which is your grains and your rices and your carbs, which fuel our body. So now when we're actually stressed, we're not looking and we're not thinking of all of that. We're just grabbing because we have that next meeting to run to, or we have to drop our kids to the next event, or we're driving. We don't have that time to sit down and actually eat. And then this also decreases our bile production, which is a huge thing because that actually breaks down our food further. That's what supports our food and our liver. And where our liver is actually then backed up, then all these other complications arise that with the liver. We have poor digestion and reduced hygiene. So now that we've moved on to the immune lymphatic stage, when we're stressed, we have decreased immunity. So that means you're going to get every single virus that is your way. Your body's just going to be attacked from every angle. That you're also nutrient deficient and you're inflamed. And so when you're inflamed, that means you have, it comes back to the gut being toxic. And your stress levels, your skin becomes very thin. Eczema is very common at that point. When you're stressed, your skin is thin, your digestive system is very weak. That's when the eczema starts happening. Now we get into the nervous system where we have our mood changes, right? As women, we're told, it's okay. It's just part of, going through the phases. No, it's not. It's actually our gut is talking to us. And that's where anxiety and depression actually kick in. A lot of people don't realize that there is that connection between food and our brainwaves. So then we also lower our B vitamins, which are essential for our nervous system. We lower our essential fatty acid. So that is absolutely like necessity for our hormone productions, for our cholesterol. And then of course there's the hormonal imbalances. Now we go into our circulatory cardiovascular connection. So it increases blood pressure, increases the high rate of like your resting rate, increases free radicals in the blood. So there is all this toxins that are just sitting in your blood and we're not removing them from our system. And then of course it reduces blood circulation. And if we can go on to the next slide. So to continue with that, then it hits our endocrine or glandular system. So it decreases our thyroid production, increases our adrenal stress, increases blood sugar problems. So then there's that high insulin cortisol levels, which is then a precursor to diabetes and dementia. For women, it's infertility, and as well as for men, it's infertility with their sperm count. It affects their sperm count. Um, Mood balances, which we already spoke about earlier, low libido. So this goes for both men and women. You'll notice that, if there's that imbalance with your estrogen levels, testosterone levels, and progesterone levels, you're not going to want to have that high sex drive. You're going to just feel very repelled. Again, so then it decreases your sex hormones. It also lowers your dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin levels, so that you're not going to be as happy, as cheerful. Things are going to be very bleak for you. And then again, we've spoken about this a few times, but it increases the level of anxiety and depression. And this is where I fell in. I was actually a survivor of depression for 10 years. I did try to commit suicide on a few different accounts because my nutrition level wasn't there. Along with other things, expectations, and many other things. My cortisol level, my stress levels were always through the roof at that point. Next level, or next slide, I should say. So what can you do to reduce your cortisol levels? Go outside every day for 15 to 20 minutes, get natural vitamin D. And when you're outside for 15 to 20 minutes, you don't need to put on the sunscreen because you actually need to allow your skin to absorb the vitamin D. If you're always wearing the sunscreen, you're not going to be able to energize your thyroid. Your thyroid especially needs it. It needs the sun in the morning. The best time to get it is in the morning. It's not going to convert it properly. But yes, if you are out longer than 15 to 20 minutes, then of course you need to make sure you're protecting yourself as well. Meditate, go dancing, go swimming, go walking or hiking, or whatever activity it is that makes you excited. Go spend time with your family. Go do something that as a family you enjoy, or it can be you time. Find purpose in your life. Volunteer. Do something that's bigger than yourself. Of course, you can also come visit R.H.N Medista Spa for a massage, a facial. You can use the steam room. And if you can't use the steam room, you can also use, in other areas, you can use the infrared sauna, which is a great way to release some stress. The most important is adequate and uninterrupted sleep. So you want to make sure you're creating a routine around sleep. Like make sure you're turning off your phone at a certain time. Make sure you allow yourself to have 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Turn off all the blue lights. Put your phone, we live by our phones. Our phones are with us. Put it on do not disturb and turn off the blue light and turn it actually to warm light, so then that way you're not looking at it. And be cognizant of it. Like that's your time. Don't let anyone bring it in. And also the other one is don't have any electronics in your room. Like the only thing that I have in my room is my phone, just because that is actually my alarm system. But I don't have a laptop, no TV, because of the EMFs that are being emitted at night. So that's another way to lower your cortisol levels and get outside as much as possible. Next slide. So what are some nutrients I need to support my hormones to reduce cortisol levels? B vitamins, vitamin D, essential fatty acids. So that would be that could also be in the form of fish. We need to have fish 2 to 3 times a week. Of course, you want to make sure they're wild and not farmed fish. Your flax seeds, all of the seeds are really good for the essential fatty acids. Vitamin D, it's a little bit harder in the food, but you can definitely get it with your leafy greens. The vitamin Bs, you can get it as well in your leafy greens. You can get it in many different vegetables. Probiotics is essential for our gut, which supports also our cortisol levels, and that you can get from probiotics. You can get from yogurt, you can get from kimchi, you can get from any fermented food. So I'm not a big fan of the kimchi or the fermented foods. I just don't like that sour, tangy taste. So I actually do take probiotics, and the ones that I love, I absolutely love taking my probiotics. I take 2 a day. So I love them. And then of course we need iron. So there's iron supplements, but then you can also get it in iron as in food. So liver is the best place to get your iron. But then again, you don't want to have too much liver, because remember, liver is actually the organ that is detoxifying everything, right? So when you are looking at iron, you can do the vegetarian, which is like your broccoli, your spinach, like the very green leafy vegetables have a lot of iron in there. And then finally, we need like vitamin C and collagen. So biotin, which is part of your Bs. And you can actually scan the QR code and have your vitamin regimen ready for you. And you can pick those up at R.H.N Medispa, or you can have them delivered to your house. Next slide. So ways that you can work with me. You can work with me in person or online. So when we're working together, we are working on a personalized program just for you, with meal plans, everything that is catered specifically to you and exactly what hormones are out of balance. Stay connected on social media, where I do share a lot of tips and tricks, and that's how you can book with me if you want, on the QR code. So thank you again for coming in. Hope you had a wonderful time. If you have any questions, please pop them into the chat. We'd love to respond to them. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you had a wonderful time. Look forward to working with you.